Part 1, The Abduction of Lila. The Peaceful Colony. Lila's laughter echoed through the lush meadows of Verdania, a serene planet far from the chaos of the galactic wars. The colony was a haven, a place where families thrived under the twin suns. Lila, a curious and spirited 8-year-old, spent her days exploring the fields, chasing glowing insects, and dreaming of the stars. Her father, Commander Jason Thorne, a retired military officer, watched her with pride. After years of service, he had found solace in raising his daughter in this tranquil world. But peace, as they would soon learn, was fragile. The sky darkens. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, the sky above Verdania began to tremble. A low hum grew into a deafening roar, and the colonists looked up in terror. A massive, jagged ship descended, its dark hull bristling with spikes and glowing runes. The air grew heavy, and the ground shook as the alien vessel landed in the heart of the colony. Lila froze, her wide eyes reflecting the monstrous craft. "Dad," she screamed, running toward her father. The beam of light. Before Jason could reach her, a blinding beam of light engulfed Lila, lifting her into the air. She screamed, her small hands reaching for her father as she was pulled toward the ship. Jason sprinted forward, his heart pounding, but the alien craft was already ascending. He fired his plasma rifle, but the bolts dissipated harmlessly against the ship's shields. "Lila," he shouted, his voice breaking as the ship vanished into the stars. The aftermath. The colony was in chaos. Colonists huddled together, their faces pale with fear. Jason fell to his knees, his mind racing. Who had taken his daughter? And why? As he stared at the empty sky, a resolve hardened within him. He would find Lila, no matter the cost. But first, he needed answers. The colony's elders gathered, their faces grim. Those were no ordinary aliens, one of them said. They were Draconians, an ancient race of dragon-like beings. They haven't been seen in centuries. The journey begins. Jason knew he couldn't face the Draconians alone. He needed help. He contacted an old friend, Dr. Elias Grant, a brilliant scientist who had studied alien cultures. "Elias," Jason said, his voice steady, "Lila's been taken by Draconians. I need your expertise." Elias, though shocked, agreed to help. Together, they began to piece together a plan. They would need a ship, weapons, and a crew brave enough to venture into the unknown. The crew assembles. Jason and Elias recruited a small but skilled team. There was Caravas, a fearless pilot with a knack for navigating dangerous space routes, Lieutenant Marcus Reed, a tactical genius with a sharp mind, and Zara Nil, a linguist who could communicate with alien species. As they prepared their ship, the Starhawk, Jason felt a glimmer of hope. They were going to bring Lila home. Into the unknown. The Starhawk launched into the stars, its engines roaring as it left Verdania behind. The crew was silent, each lost in their thoughts. Jason stared at the stars, his heart heavy with worry. "We're coming, Lila," he whispered. "Hold on." The ship entered hyperspace, hurtling toward the Draconian homeworld. The journey would be perilous, but Jason was ready to face whatever lay ahead. For Lila, he would brave the depths of hell itself. Part 2, The Draconian Lair. The Arrival. The Starhawk emerged from hyperspace near the Draconian homeworld, a desolate planet shrouded in dark clouds. The surface was jagged and barren, with towering spires of black rock piercing the sky. The crew gathered on the bridge, their faces tense. "This place gives me the creeps," Kara muttered, her hands gripping the controls. "Stay sharp," Jason said. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The descent. The Starhawk descended through the thick atmosphere, its hull groaning under the strain. As they approached the surface, they spotted a massive fortress carved into the side of a mountain. "That's where they took her," Jason said, his voice grim. The ship landed a safe distance away, and the crew prepared to move out. They armed themselves with plasma rifles and stealth gear, knowing that one wrong move could mean disaster. The infiltration. The team moved silently through the rocky terrain, their eyes scanning for any sign of danger. As they neared the fortress, they spotted draconian guards patrolling the perimeter. The creatures were terrifying, tall, reptilian beings with scales that shimmered in the dim light. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly intelligence, and their claws looked sharp enough to tear through steel. "We need a distraction," Marcus whispered. Zara nodded and activated a small drone, sending it flying toward the guards. The Draconians turned their attention to the drone, giving the team a chance to slip inside. The fortress. The interior of the fortress was dark and foreboding, with walls covered in strange symbols and glowing runes. The air was thick with the scent of sulfur, and the sound of distant roars echoed through the halls. "This place is a nightmare," Kara muttered. "Stay focused," Jason said. "We need to find Lila." The team moved cautiously, their weapons at the ready. They encountered several draconian guards, but their stealth training allowed them to avoid detection. The discovery. After what felt like hours, the team reached a large chamber deep within the fortress. The room was filled with strange machinery, and in the center was a glowing crystal. "What is this place?" Elias whispered, his eyes wide with fascination. "I don't know," Jason said, "but we need to keep moving." As they turned to leave, they heard a faint cry. "Dad," it was Lila's voice. Jason's heart leapt. "Lila," he shouted, running toward the sound. The trap. As Jason reached the source of the cry, the ground beneath him gave way. He fell into a pit, landing hard on the rocky floor. The rest of the team rushed to the edge, but before they could help, the walls of the pit began to close in. "It's a trap," Marcus shouted. The team worked quickly to free Jason, but they were running out of time. As the walls closed in, Jason realized that they were not alone. A massive draconian emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with malice. "You should not have come here," it hissed. The battle. The team opened fire, their plasma bolts lighting up the dark chamber. The draconian roared, its claws slashing through the air. Jason fought with everything he had, his mind focused on one thing: saving Lila. The battle was fierce, but the team's training and determination paid off. With a final shot, the draconian fell, its body collapsing to the ground. "We need to move," Jason said, his voice urgent. "Lila's close. I can feel it." Part 3, The Miracle. The Rescue. The team pressed on, their hearts pounding as they neared the heart of the fortress. They finally reached a large, circular chamber, its walls lined with glowing crystals. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on it lay Lila, her small body surrounded by a shimmering force field. "Lila," Jason shouted, rushing toward her. But before he could reach her, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Stop." The Draconian leader. A tall, imposing draconian stepped into the light, its scales glistening like polished obsidian. This was no ordinary draconian, this was their leader. "You are brave to come this far," it said, its voice deep and resonant. "But you cannot take the child. She is the key to our survival." Jason's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" The draconian leader gestured to the crystals. "Our world is dying. These crystals are the last remnants of our power. The child has a unique energy, an energy that can restore our world." The truth. Jason's mind raced. He looked at Lila, her small form glowing faintly within the force field. "You're using her as a battery," he said, his voice filled with anger. "We have no choice," the draconian leader said. "Without her, our species will perish." Jason shook his head. "There has to be another way." The draconian leader hesitated, its glowing eyes studying Jason. "Perhaps there is," it said. "But it will require a great sacrifice." The sacrifice. The Draconian leader explained that the crystals could be recharged using a different source of energy, one that required a living being to give up their life force. If you are willing to make the sacrifice, the leader said, we will release the child. Jason didn't hesitate. Take me, he said. The team protested, but Jason was resolute. She's my daughter. I'll do whatever it takes to save her. The miracle. As Jason stepped forward, the Draconian leader activated the crystals. A bright light enveloped Jason, and he felt a strange warmth spread through his body. The crystals began to glow brighter, their energy surging. But just as the process reached its peak, something unexpected happened. The force field around Lila shattered, and she stood up, her eyes glowing with a powerful light. No, she shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. You won't take my dad. The power within. Lila's body began to emit a radiant energy, and the crystals responded, their glow intensifying. The Draconian leader stepped back, its eyes wide with shock. This is impossible, it said. The child, she has awakened the ancient power. Lila raised her hands, and the energy surged, filling the chamber with light. The Draconians fell to their knees, their bodies trembling. We are saved, the leader whispered. The aftermath. As the light faded, Lila collapsed into her father's arms. The Draconian leader approached, its demeanor changed. You have given us a great gift, it said. We will never forget your sacrifice. Jason held Lila tightly, his heart filled with relief. Let's go home, he said. The team made their way back to the Starhawk, their spirits lifted by the miracle they had witnessed. As they left the Draconian homeworld behind, Jason knew that their lives would never be the same. But for now, they were together, and that was all that mattered. Part 4, The Return to Verdania. The Journey Home. The Starhawk soared through the stars, its engines humming steadily as it carried the crew back to Verdania. The mood on board was a mix of relief and exhaustion. Lila, now safe in her father's arms, slept peacefully, her small body curled up on a makeshift bed. Jason sat beside her, his eyes never leaving her face. The rest of the crew moved quietly, giving the father and daughter their space. We did it, Kara said softly, breaking the silence. But at what cost? The weight of sacrifice. Jason couldn't shake the image of the Draconian leader's words echoing in his mind. A great sacrifice, it had said. Though Lila had miraculously awakened the ancient power within her, Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of what had almost happened. He had been ready to give his life for her, and he knew he would do it again in a heartbeat. But the thought of leaving Lila alone in the universe was unbearable. He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. The crew's reflections. As the Starhawk continued its journey, the crew gathered in the common area, each lost in their thoughts. Elias, the scientist, was busy analyzing the data they had collected from the Draconian fortress. The energy Lila emitted, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, he said, his voice filled with awe. It's as if she tapped into a power that transcends our understanding of science. Marcus, the tactical expert, leaned back in his chair. Whatever it was, it saved us. But I can't help but wonder, what does this mean for Lila? For all of us? A new threat. Unbeknownst to the crew, their actions on the Draconian homeworld had not gone unnoticed. Far across the galaxy, a shadowy figure watched a holographic recording of the events that had unfolded. The child has awakened the ancient power, the figure murmured, its voice cold and calculating. She must be found. The figure turned to a group of armored soldiers. Prepare the fleet. We cannot allow such power to fall into the wrong hands. Arrival at Verdania. The Starhawk finally approached Verdania, its twin suns casting a warm glow over the planet. The colony came into view, its golden fields and peaceful settlements a stark contrast to the dark, jagged world they had just left. As the ship landed, a crowd of colonists gathered, their faces filled with hope and relief. Jason stepped off the ship, carrying Lila in his arms. The crowd erupted into cheers, their joy palpable. But Jason's heart was heavy. He knew their journey was far from over. The reunion. Lila stirred in her father's arms, her eyes fluttering open. "Dad," she murmured, her voice soft and sleepy. "We're home, sweetheart," Jason said, his voice choked with emotion. Lila looked around, her eyes widening as she saw the familiar faces of the colonists. "We made it," she said, a small smile spreading across her face. Jason held her tightly, his heart swelling with love. But even as he celebrated their reunion, a sense of unease lingered in the back of his mind. The warning. As the crew settled back into life on Verdania, Jason sought out the colony's elders. "We need to be prepared," he said, his voice urgent. "The Draconians may have let us go, but there are others out there who will stop at nothing to harness Lila's power." The elders nodded, their faces grave. "We will do everything we can to protect her," one of them said. "But you must understand, Jason, Lila's power is a gift, but it is also a burden. She will need guidance, and she will need you." A father's resolve. Jason returned to their home, his mind racing. He sat beside Lila's bed, watching her sleep. "I won't let anything happen to you," he whispered, his voice filled with determination. "No matter what it takes, I'll protect you." But even as he spoke the words, he couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges were yet to come. The calm before the storm. Days turned into weeks, and life on Verdania returned to a semblance of normalcy. Lila played in the fields, her laughter once again filling the air. The crew of the Starhawk worked to repair the ship, their bond stronger than ever. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Jason trained tirelessly, honing his skills and preparing for the battles he knew were coming. Elias continued his research, determined to unlock the secrets of Lila's power. And Marcus and Kara kept a watchful eye on the skies, knowing that danger could arrive at any moment. The gathering storm. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, a faint glow appeared in the sky. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a distant star. But as the glow grew brighter, the colonists realized with dread that it was a ship, a massive, ominous vessel unlike anything they had ever seen. "They're here," Marcus said, his voice grim. Jason clenched his fists, his heart pounding. "Get Lila to safety," he ordered. "We'll hold them off." The battle begins. The crew of the Starhawk sprang into action, their training and determination guiding them. The enemy ship descended, its dark hull bristling with weapons. Jason and his team took up defensive positions, their weapons at the ready. "This is it," Jason said, his voice steady. "We fight for Lila. We fight for Verdania. We fight for our future." As the enemy forces descended, the battle began, the air filled with the sounds of blaster fire and the cries of the brave.